proudly show off that.
I gotta say thank you for running openly as an openly gay man. It definitely has made it easier for someone like me to run, and I do think the hate that comes around knowing someone is LGBT and wanting to represent their community, which for a while seemed like they didn't connect. We've been able to break that down, not only because of the work that you've done, but also for everyone in this room who I know is a supporter of LGBT equality. You've really made a huge difference in our state and in our country, so thank you for that. And I've always seen Marlon by your side. Marlon's been by your side for how long?
16 years.
16 years. I see you both are too young for that, but I'm going to leave that alone. Can you talk about any specific challenges that you and Marlon have faced being an elected official? I mean, you were the first gay couple, family, to have a child while serving in Congress. Can you talk about any specific challenges?
Well, you know, by the way, there's not a lot different from being a gay parent as being a straight parent. I mean, when you're changing diapers, it doesn't match. Angelica knows that. It doesn't make a big difference. What it did help me recognize firsthand, and I've always supported it, is the continuation of Pat's landmark work around family and medical leave. We have to find a way to have paid family and medical leave here in Colorado. Because for families that can afford it, the law allows it, but it's not truly a choice if you're one paycheck away from making your rent, if you need to put food on the table. And that firsthand experience, you know, as a father only helped me recognize how important those first few weeks are for kids. And you're never able to go back to those first few weeks of bonding and being with your kids. So I think it's something that every family should be able to have in Colorado, not just those who can afford it.
And Pat, you know, you worked on the Family Medical Leave Act in Congress, you know, and it was a huge achievement. It was a huge thing, and it's something that I think, you know, my generation right now, quite frankly, takes for granted, right? I mean, it's something that we have, and we do have to transition into paid medical and family leave, but can you talk about some of the challenges of getting that bill passed?
It takes 9 months to have a baby, and it took 9 years to pass that bill. I thought I was never going to get that bill through. It's a very, very difficult thing for people. I don't know. The problem is we still are the worst industrial nation in what we do to support families. And this is a funny story. About 3 years ago or 4 years ago, they called me and said, you must come to Washington. We're celebrating the 20th anniversary of family medical leave. I said, no, I would be embarrassed. I had to water it down so much to pass it, and you haven't done a thing to strengthen it, you know. So thank goodness that Jared is really talking about pushing that and putting that front and center, because it may be states, that may be the only way we can really get it through. Because somehow, I will never forget, one of the gentlemen from the Chamber of Commerce in the South said, honey, if you pass that bill, all the women are going to be gone during deer hunting season. I'm like, they're going to have a baby and go out and hunt deer? But, I mean, I heard some of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard.
Right. Well, you know, we've had a hard time passing paid family leave here in Colorado at the state level. I think, you know, another reason why I support Jared so strongly is because we need someone who's going to fight for that in the governor's office, the first floor we call it, as well as on the second floor, because we need to make sure that we get that passed. So thank you for supporting that. One more question for you, Pat. You know, you were the only woman on the Armed Services Committee. My mom was a single mom, and she was an officer in the Army, an OBGYN. So she often, you know, was the only black female in a room or the highest ranking at any certain time, African-American female. And so that was really hard on our family. There was definitely a lot that came out around that. And I wanted to know your thoughts about being the only female on that committee.
Well, I can say they certainly didn't welcome me. I'll never forget going in there the first day, and the gentleman who was the chairman was what we then called a Dixiecrat. He was from Nolens, Louisiana, and he had vetoed myself and the first African American to go on. It was Ron Dellums from Oakland. And it was the first time they had overridden the veto. So here we came in, and we're thinking we're really, oh boy, this is great, you know. He goes off like a bull that had been, stuck with a pin or something, saying that there was no reason to be a chairman anymore, they're taking away all of his power, yada yada. But he said, these two people are only worth half of the rest of you, and the power I still have is how many chairs are at the dais. And he said, so I'm giving them one chair. So Ron and I sat cheek to cheek for 2 years. Barney Frank used to introduce me and say it was the only half-assed thing I did in Congress, which wasn't true, but it was really, it was positively amazing, because obviously all the other members wanted to please the chairman to keep whatever they had in their district. So the two of us were like, we had a bowline or something, I don't know. We were really not, exactly. It was not a great fun thing at first.
Well,
yes. We had all sorts of fun with this kind of thing. The toys, right?
the aircraft carriers. Well, I mean, I think that's a interesting thing to think about. How long, or how did Congress change since you've been there? I think you got in your first year, it was one way, but as you served, for both of you all, how has Washington or Congress changed in your term? So from when you started till now, and then also when your time there?
When I started was 1973, and I think the average age of a member of Congress was over 60 at that point, and they were very white. It was light, bright, and very white. And there were hardly any females there. Half of them, of the women that had been elected, half of them had come to replace their husband. And I remember sitting next to the dean of the women saying, I'm Pat Schroeder and I'm here. And, what do you do when you're a 31-year-old? You're trying to make a friend, right? I said, what should I call you? She said, my name is Mrs. John Sullivan. And I said, well, I know that, but what should I call you? She said, you call me by my name, Mrs. John Sullivan. I am not just a woman. And I thought, okay, well, I don't know what you are, but friendly is not a word. So I kind of crawled out of there. But we had no women pages, we had no women in the doorman's office, we had no women. The women's gym they finally made for us in the basement with a ping pong table and 6 hair dryers. Yeah, no, it was really amazing. They did not want us there. And they kept saying, you're a fluke, aren't you? I mean, your district will come to its senses one day. So there you go. And I'm sure you had some of that too.
It has changed a lot, because when I was elected, the iconic Barney Frank was there, and Barney Frank is just Barney Frank. I mean, he's a character and a legend. And Tammy Baldwin was a member of Congress as well. But we had no caucus, we had no group. We have evolved the LGBT Equality Caucus. We had 7 LGBT members of Congress. We have allies, I think with our straight allies, we're up to 100 members of that caucus. So it's there alongside the other diversity caucuses, Congressional Black Caucus, Congressional Hispanic Caucus, Asian American, Pacific Islander, and part of the diversity caucus. I just remember the novelty of it. When I first got elected, there was an older member, since retired, Democrat, came up to me and said, I hear you're gay. And I wasn't sure where this was going. And I said, yeah, I am. And he says, good for you, and punches me on the shoulder. I'm like, okay, I guess. I mean, I don't know if it's good for me. Just, yeah, no, Pat knows who it was, because he just liked to punch people on the shoulders, but it's very friendly. So it was a novelty. And, obviously, in our society, there's still a lot of assumptions. I mean, the number of times I've been asked, particularly about Republicans, about my wife. But, I think it's evolved even in those 10 years, because what you have is, when you have 7 members, you have on many committees you're represented. So, I mean, it's not like you have to feel that extra honest being the only member of the LGBT community, being the only woman. There's many women on the Armed Forces committee, right? So you don't have to focus as much or be limited as much by being the representative of your community when there are others that can also help shoulder that.
But let me tell you what hasn't evolved. the Republicans are not fearless at all. They're not standing up for the country. You know, my colleagues that I served with pointed out that you probably don't know this. They put him on the Rules Committee because he's the toughest, smartest one that they knew, and he could take them on. And no, that's a real compliment, because you have to deal with every single thing that comes through the Congress. It has to have a rule. And of course you're outvoted, but he's there and he makes the case. And that's hard to do every day when you know you're going to lose anyway, because there's more of them than you. Okay. Secondly, John Lewis, who is one of the absolute heroes of mine, said, you have to elect Jared. You have to. What are you thinking? I mean, he is fearless. And we just, you know, he's trying to be nice and not saying I am fearless, but he is fearless, and that's why we need him so desperately. And I think that's one of the things Congress isn't. We've lost a lot of people, especially on the other side of the line. I lived through Watergate, and the Republicans did come around. You know, they finally got it. And it was Goldwater who went to Dixon and said, this is it. But man, oh man, they're all hiding under their desks now. So yeah, those are the times we live in.
Yeah, definitely. Things are changed and they're the same, and they've gone up and down, I'll say that. But at the end of the day, you know, we're here to talk also about representation, right? Can you talk more about why representation matters, why it matters in Washington, why it matters in elected office right here in Colorado? And what are the specific, if you could think about specific policy implications that diverse representation has?
You know, it's important across all segments of society. So that means in business, in schools, right, where students perform better when they can have teachers that understand the cultural context and background that they come from. It means, of course, in elected office. You know, as a basic value, I and probably most of you here believe that diversity is a strength. And if you believe that diversity is a strength, then you want more of it, right? And so that's at all levels, including appointments that I get to make as governor, whether it's on the judicial side or in executive office, at all levels of representation. It has so many benefits. I mean, it means that people growing up from all backgrounds have that role model and can see themselves becoming, as a young black girl, becoming a scientist, or joining the military, or being a teacher. And so it's about making sure that everybody knows that there should not be any barriers that hold them back from everything that they have the ability to accomplish.
Right. I mean, we'll never be a democracy unless we really deal with human rights, with civil rights, with really treating every individual like they're a human being and they have every right to do it. And then there's the diversity thing, which is, okay, you invite them to the dance, but the inclusion thing is then you dance with them. You know, and so there's both parts, and Jared knows that. It's not just you have somebody for show around, but you don't really include them. So there's diversity, but there's inclusion, and that's a very important lesson, I think.
You know, and I think that we're up against Republicans, like Donald Trump, that see diversity as a threat, right? We see it as an asset, they see it as a threat. So they're worried about what it means for those who have held the levers of power in this country for too long. They worry about what it means for the economically privileged. They worry what it means for the geographically privileged. So I think it's a very different frame. And out of that comes the fear that leads to